In 1996, MLS was founded on the basis of emulating other successful American sports leagues like the NFL, NBA, or MLB. They created a playoff system in which your regular season record earned you playoff seeding, but not much else. The champion, of course, has been crowned as the winner of the MLS Cup each season ever since. Immediately upon the founding of MLS, however, American soccer fans who also watched European football had the idea of a supporters scudetto, or a trophy given to the best team throughout the regular season. After a couple of iterations, fans from across the league came together, raising $3,000 to create the very first Supporters Shield in 1999, with DC United as the first official winners, though they retroactively awarded the Shield to the 1996 through 98 winners as well. At this point, it was awesome that fans had come together to create the Supporters Shield, but it was truly didn't mean anything outside of the $2,200 piece of sheet metal that was awarded. That lasted until 2006, when the U.S. Soccer Federation officially awarded the CONCACAF Champions League spots, now the CONCACAF Champions Cup, to the Supporters Shield and MLS Cup winners rather than the MLS Cup winner and the runner-up. Now the trophy meant something. From 1999 to 2006 and now to 2023, the Supporters Shield has continued to gain relevance and importance among clubs, players, and fans to the point that there is now a hot debate over which is more valuable. I'm here to tell you, 2023 could be the year we look back on and say, that's when we all realized the Supporters Shield is more important. Let me explain why. The basis of the argument is that the MLS regular season is 34 games long, while the MLS playoffs are just 4 rounds long. The point here, of course, is that the longer, the more difficult. And the only reason people disagree with that sentiment, and don't hate me here, is because they're American. And I understand that. American leagues are built with the playoffs as the title deciders across every sport, and as we discussed earlier, that's what MLS based itself on in terms of structuring back in 1996. However, when we look at European football, for example, the UEFA Champions League doesn't determine the best team in any country. It may be called the European champion, but the most recent example, to me, is the most perfect one. Nobody thinks that Thomas Tuchel's Chelsea in 2021 was better than Manchester City when they won the UEFA Champions League. But that's what happened because anything can happen in a tournament. And that, of course, is a much longer and more testing tournament than the MLS playoffs here. The point, of course, is that the winner of a tournament doesn't compare to the winner of a league season, whether that's a 38-game season in the Premier League or a 34-game season in MLS. That is what proves the best teams because it tests teams in different ways. For example, depth, something that isn't tested quite so much in the MLS playoffs or tournaments in general because they can be based on a great starting 11 without a quality team from top to bottom. Look at Inter Miami in the Leagues Cup versus the MLS season, for example. Their starting 11 with Messi in it is fantastic, but top to bottom, they're not a great team and struggle without their stars in the team. More importantly, though, tournaments can be based on form more than anything. If you're in a good run of form, you can beat a much better team in a bad run of form. We've known this forever in MLS, of course. The winner is the hottest team. I'm not saying anything new here. Season-long form, however, is a completely different task and much more difficult. Across the past 20 years, for example, only 4 MLS Cup champions have also won the Supporters Shield. This is probably the reason when you talk to MLS coaches, the narrative of importance has shifted. After FC Cincinnati won the Supporters Shield this year, their head coach, Pat Noonan, was quoted as saying, "For me now, even in my own opinion of this, has changed. I think the Shield has now surpassed MLS Cup in terms of relevance. That's not to take away the desire for our team to hold the MLS Cup trophy, but for that group to be the top team over the course of the season, I think it's very meaningful. The hope is we can find a way to achieve both, but that's how I feel about the Supporters Shield." Now, I'm sure many of you are thinking, well, of course, he won the Supporters' Shield. He hasn't won MLS Cup yet, so he's going to think it's more important. And that is exactly why I asked Steve Cherundolo, the manager of LAFC, who of course won both the Supporters' Shield and MLS Cup last season, his opinion on the topic. Cherundolo said to me, I think you can pull a few quotes from me last season in a very similar matter than what you've heard from Pat. Staying focused and playing consistently well and winning games in a consistent fashion over a 34-game season with a month break for Leagues Cup is certainly more difficult than being good for 4 rounds of playoffs. I think there's no question there. Having that said, winning on the road in playoff scenarios is also difficult. In their own way, they're both difficult, but for me, for sure, I would always rate the Supporters' Shield higher. Well, there you have it. The 2 most recent winning coaches of the Supporters' Shield and the most recent winning coach of MLS Cup both value the Supporters' Shield over MLS Cup, and Pat Noonan himself said that opinion has changed. Now, the best argument against the Supporters' Shield being more important, of course, is that each team doesn't have an even schedule as they do in European leagues where they play each team twice. With the Eastern and Western Conference, each team's schedules differ, but unfortunately, making a uniform schedule across the league is not feasible or logical due to geographic constraints. But ultimately, the value placed on each of these trophies will come down to the players, coaches, and most importantly, the fans. Players and coaches have already shifted to the Supporters' Shield side. It's time for fans to do the same. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscription. It really helps out the channel. I will see you next time.